It's been just 2 years since Lapis, the all-day diner at the Oberoi, has been launched. But in this short time, the restaurant has evolved, keeping with its slant of European cuisine. The latest promotion at Lapis explores a cuisine that we think we know well, but we still don't really know, with Chef Michael Weldon. It's Australian cuisine, but it's not quite the Australian cuisine that you think you know.
Yeah, so my first trip to India, and it has blown me away. Just the diversity of food in India. I think I knew about the Indian food you have at Indian restaurants in Australia, but I had no idea just how diverse and how unique the different cuisines of India are. I've come to realise in my short time here that India has by far the most exciting food cuisine in the world, and we know nothing about it, or very little about it outside of India. So to visit different cities and different towns and see the little individual cuisines inside of different cities is so exciting for me. And my month in India is not enough to learn all of it. I think a lifetime wouldn't be enough to learn all of it, but what it's done is really get me excited about the food happening here in India, and I think it's the most exciting food or cuisine in the world at the moment. So maybe spend a lot more time here and learn a lot more about India.
Well, the Taste of Australia event is something we really thought could partner up well with us, because in Oberoi Hotels, the thing is, especially in the food and beverage space, we like to push the envelope and not just do your regular lunches and dinners. And Chef Weldon is also someone who likes to play with different ingredients, combining that with the Australian ingredients. And we thought that kind of a menu paired with a premium wine like Penfolds would really help and would really match the entire theme and ambience of Lapis. So that was the whole idea behind going for this promotion.
Well, for Taste of Australia in India, we were looking for a Masterchef Australia, former contestant, but also someone who also fit the bill, who had a great connection with Australian farmers. And Michael, given his role as a presenter for the Australian TV show Farm to Fork, he really fit the bill. Soon we'll have the Australia-India Free Trade Agreement coming into force, and then there'll be many food and beverage elements, which Michael has highlighted here today. I mean, we'll have Australian lamb, hopefully avocados, but then I guess of keen interest to a lot of Indians I know is Australian wine.
Native Australian ingredients is something I'm really interested in because Australia has such a young food culture, and there's not a lot of Australian dishes or recipes, and we have great ingredients, but a lot of them come from other places. So we have some really nice Australian native ingredients that we can show off, and it's something that I'm learning more and more about, working with some really amazing friends back in Australia. A beautiful lady called Noni Barrow, who has a wonderful restaurant in Australia called Mabu Mabu, and she helps supply me a lot of the spice that I brought here with me. She's been teaching me a lot about native Australian ingredients and the food of the traditional owners of Australia and the Indigenous people of Australia. It's really exciting, and the future of Australian food is really sitting in those ingredients and that really beautiful food. And Noni, she's at the forefront, so I've learned a lot from her. And then another guy, a guy called Daniel Motlop, who's from up in just outside of Darwin in the Larrakia lands. He's taught me a lot about native Australian meats and vegetables, and he does a lot of work with those. So I've been really lucky to spend some time with some really talented people and learn a lot about Australian ingredients, and I want to share that with the world. So I had to bring something to India with me and show them off, and I think it's an exciting comparison, because obviously here you have lots of spices and flavours and aromatic ingredients that you use, and I've just brought the Australian ones that we use and that are becoming more and more prevalent in Australian cooking and common. So yeah, I mean, it's funny, some of the ingredients you tried today, there'd be people in Australia that haven't tried. So it's not like a common thing to try native Australian ingredients, but it's becoming more common. It's really exciting, and I took great pride at some of the dinners I've done along the way for this Taste of Australia trip with the High Commission. I've had people come and say, I've seen lemon myrtle or I've seen wattle seed on Masterchef, but I've never been able to try it. And so I've been able to give them their first experience of those native Australian ingredients, which is, yeah, I'm really proud of. I think there'd be elements of Masterchef that has probably made food a little bit too fancy and a bit too posh. I mean, I know I spent a lot of time doing really some high-end, fine dining, boutique-y plate-ups in the past, and I think I've found my feet in my cuisine and my Australian cuisine. And I think today you saw that it wasn't over the top. It wasn't too many little things. It was lots of colour, lots of flavour, lots of aroma, and lots of texture. But it wasn't too fancy. It was just fun. And I guess for me, I like to be a bit of down-to-earth, fun Aussie guy and make my food fun, and I think that's probably more important. But yeah, I think in some ways Masterchef Australia has taken Australian food to a really fancy level, and it's exciting in a lot of ways, but sometimes you lose that authenticity and that homeliness of cooking when you go too far into the other stuff. So yeah, I'm enjoying showing off Australian cuisine as it is, and you know, we're dressing it up. The pie you had today wasn't exactly like you have a pie in a paper bag with some tomato sauce and top in Australia, but it's pretty close. But what we've done is make it look prettier, but it's still, at its core, you know, a very everyday dish. It's been really exciting, I think, to hear the different reactions from the different diners trying my dishes and my my ingredients. And I think the dishes have evolved along the way from event to event through learning what people here in India like. I've definitely added more spice and more chili heat to some of the dishes. I think the interesting one is how different the vegetarian dishes I've served are. I like to serve in my vegetarian dishes like a whole piece of vegetable, grilled or roasted like you would a piece of meat or fish. And I think that's slightly different to how some vegetarian dishes are served here in India. So it was cool to see that and get the reaction to that. And
Chef Michael Weldon might be a MasterChef finalist and winner, but it's clear that his food philosophy also emphasizes on the fact that food needs to retain its soul, even if it's presented in a fancy way. But most of all, he's going back with a lot of interesting impressions of India, of Indian cuisine, and we can't wait for him to come back and show us what he's got up his sleeve next.